My name is Elle Barbara. I'm ageless, and I think of myself as a bit of a Jane of all trades. I'm a singer, songwriter, a performance artist. I'm a house mother, and also an activist. I have been involved on a community organizing level for a few years for the trans community in Montreal. The concept of intersectionality to me is quite personal. I first discovered the word when researching the work of Kimberly Crenshaw, who came up with the theory back in the 80s, but it's something that I always felt was true to my existence in as far as it is multiple acts of oppression that occur at the same time. And so it's not so much seeing myself through the lens of racist oppression, but also anti-trans oppression, sexist oppression, all at the same time. And it's really hard for me to separate all of those things because I carry all those identities in my body and on my mind at the same time. Transphobia within the LGBTQ, or as I like to say, TGLBQ, because the T comes first. Transphobia within the TGLBQ community can manifest in so many ways. It can manifest in a way that is internalized, whereby a trans person might feel like transphobic towards themselves and externalize it towards and express it towards others. But you know, as it is, the TGLBQ community tends to be, you know, pretty gay male dominated, and I've always sensed that this is sort of culture of you know, praised you know, masculinity in the gay world that even affects gay males who don't abide by, you know, certain codes of masculinity. And so you can feel it a lot as a trans feminine person, in the sense that, like, you might not be welcome in certain spaces. One thing I did notice in the last few years is that there seems to have been a faction like of the TGLBQ spectrum that has become increasingly interested in gender studies and increasingly identifies as queer. And, you know, with the term queer comes a range of politics that tend to be more radical and that tend to want to center trans identity. And so I feel like a lot of people who might have been like lesbian identified, say 10 or 20 years ago, are becoming more and more inclusive of trans realities. And I see that in Montreal, and I appreciate that. Anti-Blackness, you know, has kind of permeated culture throughout the world for a really long time, and it doesn't exclusively manifest in the absence of blackness, but also in the presence of a form of blackness that, you know, can seem oppressive to black people, and that can be very insidious. Sometimes you don't notice it. You see it through, you know, violent representations or like hypersexualized representations of black people in the cultural sphere. I think there's a lot more work to do as far as intersectional representations of blackness, positive intersectional representations of blackness. You know, as a house mother, I've taken on a bunch of people, like, you know, that are coming up on the scene, young black queer artists, queer trans artists, who want to, you know, put their foot down and express themselves. But I think that there's so much work to do, and the work, you know, the onus is not just on the TGLBQ community. It's, you know, a wider issue that needs to be addressed, so that people, you know, who, like, young black people, you know, who grow up in black families, feel that, you know, there is there are ways to be Black other than, you know, the cis heteronormative maleness that is usually presented in Quebec media. Being a house mother pertains to the system of houses in ballroom, where, you know, Vogue balls are organized and people walk, you know, a range of like different categories. And so like as the house mother, you are in a way a provider, but you also encourage your children, so to speak, to like do better, like, or to better represent the house, your house. But I see it also from a lens that, you know, that that pertains to like leadership, that seeks to encourage and empower the children that I take on in my house. And so, you know, like my kids have like, you know, so many talents. Some of them are DJs, some of them are visual artists, musicians, and so I try to push them in the directions that they want to take for them to thrive. So, you know, it makes for like very important part of my life. I take so much pleasure in it as the mother of the House of Barbara. The way that I've always thought of intersectionality is not just being victimized by, you know, a global societal system, but also being victimized within your own marginalized community. And so, like, you know, growing up in a Black family who that is transphobic means that like you'll experience transphobia within, you know, your own community, which you're supposed to feel empowered in. And like going to the like TGLBQ community is like experiencing racism. And so it's kind of nonstop, because like you keep moving from like, you know, one place to the next to find solace and community, and you hardly find it. Black men are tend to be held up to a standard of masculinity that is higher than the average men, and so you're expected, like, coming out just as gay can be sort of like an admission that, like, you know, you failed at, like, you know, the test of like Black male masculinity. And so that is stressful, because I've always been somewhat gender conforming, non-conforming growing up. It wasn't as difficult because people just assumed that I was. But yeah, it's definitely been a long process for me, and yeah, and just, yeah, navigating the world as a racialized person, I think, can make it more difficult. Seeing a representation of yourself kind of normalizes your experience. And so growing up in Quebec, for me, for instance, often meant that I had to resort to like non-Quebec media, to American representations, to see myself as a Black person. And I mean, there were like very few intersectional representations of Black queers and like Black trans people. If Quebec wants racialized folks to, you know, feel connected to the Quebec experience, it's very important that they look to having diverse representations in their cultural products, so that we can see ourselves through those and feel more affirmed in our Quebec identity.
Please welcome the House of Elle Barbara. Get me up, Donna, get me up! Get me up, Donna, get me up! Get me up! Okay, tonight, mother. Wait a minute, y'all. Come right back, y'all. Come right back, y'all. Come right back, y'all. Keep the applause going. Come right back, y'all. Let's go. Let's go, let's go. Let's go, let's go. Come on, Twitter.
Motherfucking welcome.
Oh, wait, hold on. All right, make some noise. All right.